All right. Well, shalom and peace to each and everybody. I hope that you guys are blessed and experiencing the fullness. Uh, so much going on, and wow, it's been really, really, really amazingly profound lately. The reality of what's happening, and of course, with everything that happens like that, for many people it will be confusing. For other people, it will be uh, enlivening, and for others I'm sure there's other emotions that people will experience as well, just depending on who you are. But I've been doing a lot of study for a while about this whole picture and concept. It started me on this journey kind of because we live in this time that we live in, and maybe for most people, let me say for most common people, the picture is that the most ancient text, that is to say, we had a very short picture of humanity, and it was very, we were monkeys, and then we were men, and then we became the most exalted men, that would be called modern Homo sapien, and everything went along, and everybody bought that because it didn't require any thought. It didn't require any intelligence. It didn't require any concern. You just simply said, okay, well, that's what they told me, the truth. And so all of us lived in Christianity under the lies and the ties, as well as society functioning on that basis. And so as Source has continued helping me on my journey, I've been brought to a place of perpetual recognition. That is to say that it's almost as if, as I read to you on Saturday, that almost as if sometimes hourly, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, but always moving to a new seat of perception, constantly progressive, always moving. And that's very hard for people who like not having to think a lot and they want to just stay in the same place. And I guess that's okay if that's who someone is. That just doesn't happen to be who I am. And so I've continued on, and I shared with you guys that, and it was really kind of like the question mark in life for me when I shared with y'all that there were multiple stories of the flood, and I thought that was very valuable, since all of the ones other than the one in the Bible were quite a bit more ancient. Well, that line, I didn't realize that the universe source was setting the stage for a leg of my journey. It appears from what I've been told that one leg of a journey, and I viewed that because I was really unsure, and but I got some clarity given to me, and that clarity is that a journey has ended, but it's in the beginning of a new journey, and this journey is going to be at many levels quite different and quite powerful, and so it is. We are in the middle of a situation. Many of you may not be aware of it, but all of this stuff is about to cease. Everything that you knew is fixing to get turned upside down, and it's going to really, it's like humanity, and now I understand what Dolores was saying, even if she may not have. It is going to be a separation between consciousness and unconscious people, and that's already started. It's happening, and most are not even aware that it's going to happen, much less that it already is happening. And so, even from the whole spiritual concept, and as I listen to the things that are being said, it becomes quite clear that those things may be as big a deception as the other was. And so with that concept, at some point, in time, there has to be a beginning. It wasn't 5,000 years ago. Actually, the reason that the Jews wrote the book of Genesis was a fully intended manipulation to cause everyone who after that, because understand, much of the knowledge that I'm going to be talking about had been washed out of human consciousness. It may be difficult for you to understand that we are something very special, more so than we realize, but there are many cosmic forces that desire for us to be destroyed. And the fact that we are what we are is the only reason that we even exist on this earth. And so, God, there's just so much that is available, and the universe is very kindly, because of the place and time that we're at, which isn't like has been. The things that we're going to start reading, and we will continue. I want to kind of set the stage for that. I'm gonna take those that will go with me through the Atrahasis. It is a thing that is called a creation story, but it's really a lot more than that, because it is only the creation of humans that this story confronts. And because most people are pretty not interested in reality, it's very difficult for people to deal with the reality that there have been multiple types of beings that have existed on this earth over millions of years. And that proof is even archaeologically starting to come out. We are now really deep into the concept of the Sumerians and the Anunnakis, whether you know it or not, which you don't, because it's never going to be told you. They like you being ignorant, and most people like to be ignorant, so that really coincides together. But the reality is that there are even documentations of the people that existed before the people that you have no knowledge that existed. And so you say, well, I don't really care about that stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with me. And I would hate to tell you today that it has everything to do with you, and what's going to happen to you very shortly is going to be determined on what you do or don't know. So I'm not interested in argumentative people who are mindless. I'm interested in people who are spiritual and yet intelligent and capable of thinking. It's really sad, but we're kind of at a place where it's time for the games to quit. And so as we go through the Atrahasis, you're going to get I chose this one. I shared pieces. In fact, I may have shared the whole Epic of Gilgamesh with you, which is one of the most ancient texts that we have that exist at that time. We now are finding documentation that was recorded by the Anunnakis of the people that existed before them. Well, if you know the story of the List of Kings, which was the first written document that we know of at this point that was found, the Anunnaki king ruled this earth for 250,000 years, and they speak of people who existed before them. In fact, they did not design, nor did the Sumerians, nor did we, anything. This earth has been a constant degradation from those that came before. We don't know how many came before, but we do know that the earth is billions of years old. So it would stand to reason that that this lineage is actually infinitely longer. And thankfully to the Sumerians, because of the Anunnaki, of which you are, they desired for humanity to have a record. What's really funny is we live in one of the first societies that, if cataclysm comes, as we're going to see has already happened in the past, this will be the first dispensation of humanity that there will be no record of. Because when electricity ceases, everything digital dies. And so there, for those that would come after us, there will be no record of us. We will be the blank spot for thousands of years that no one can explain. And so it's quite amazing as you go backwards to see how all of the narratives have been nothing but creations from a more ancient narrative. And so that's part of, if you haven't quite figured it out, I have an interest to find out what was, not what you think was. And so as I take off on this, for those of you who may not know, the book that I'm going to be sharing with you is called the Atrahasis, Atrahas, Atrahasis. You can get it as the Epic of Atrahasis PDF. You can pull it up in 2 seconds on your phone. You can get it as just simply the Atrahasis PDF, and you can read the whole document with those. We don't have to, thank goodness, this is the most useful form of your cell phone before your mind completely gets destroyed, which is part of what's coming in the future. Folks, in a very short amount of time, there are going to be no minds anymore. That is the plan. It is the purpose, is to wipe your mind completely, and that's what AI is all about. Greg Braden is talking about it, about people losing their divinity. If you don't understand that, I feel very sorrowful for you, because it's probably gonna happen to you if it isn't already starting to happen. And so I know that I can't help everyone, but I will tell you that, and we're going to hear about him. I think if you'll pay attention over the next months, you'll be amazed at how much you see how they wrote everything that's in the Bible from other texts, which would tell you that all that you have read and known your whole life is nothing but a 10,000-year-old story that's been rewritten by some people to manipulate you. There's none of it per se true. That's why when science scholars tell you that there have been 7 messiahs, what they are telling you is that there have been 7 different stories of a person who was what you call Jesus that existed before those people ever existed. It's not new, it's old. So, the Atrahasis. Maybe you don't understand how this works. I will say this up front, because it takes time for these things to pan out. For those of you who have heard what we heard in the Gnostic texts, much of the Gnostic texts and what Yeshua taught are correct pieces out of an ancient story, unfortunately. The creation, we're going to actually get to see what is the oldest written form that we have, and there's millions of documents, and many of them I've read. I have some documents now, Sumerian tablets that have been interpreted, writings that were left by these gods for us. But your picture of what a god is and the reality of what a god is are not even remotely close. And so you may want to live in your so-called spiritual religious realm, and it's all fake. There's not anything real about any of it. And so, Atrahasis, Tablet 1. When the gods instead of man, so now we're talking about on the earth, when the gods instead of man did the work and bore the loads. Okay? Just so that you know, the Sumerians write of the Anunnaki, and you'll hear that here. Anunnaki absolutely is defined from Sumerian as the children of An. Okay? So at that level, as far as can be surmised right now, the reality is that An, the sky god, would be what you might deem as God or source. Okay? And so, when the gods instead of man did the work and bore the loads, the gods' load was too great, the work too hard, and the trouble too much. The great Anunnaki, and just so you know, it means the children of An, and the other piece that describes Anunnaki is those who came from the sky. An is the sky god. His children came to the earth from the sky. It wasn't mythology. In all of the texts that I've read where they talk about this in the ancient, they're very, very methodical. And if you understood all that these people were and how they recorded knowledge on the tablets, they're not like you where they tell a false tale and have no consciousness of it. They were very meticulous about marking everything exactly as it was, and there is mythology, but the mass majority of what they've written and all of the things that are fixing to happen to us are written in a manual form, which is quite different literally than what you would get if it were a mythology or an ancient poem or something like that. And those things do exist, but we thank God we have enough scholars that can discern the difference simply by reading of what they were. Not that you could, but they can. And so, when the gods instead of man did the work and bore the loads, the gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much. The great Anunnaki made the Agigi carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king. Their counselor, warrior, Enlil, and some, it actually in this text ends up getting turned into Enlil, which is, so when you see Enlil and Enlil, they're the same, just different grammar. And their chamberlain was Ninurta, and their canal controller was Inugi. They took the box of lots and cast the lots, and the gods made the division. Anu went up to the sky, and Enlil took the earth for his people. So just so you know, Anu was the god of the sky, Enlil was the god of the present realm where we live, and Anki was the god of the underworld, if you would, the third layer. Some of this you've heard about, and that's actually reading the Nag Hammadi text is what has helped me to understand what's going on here, because it's just a rewrite of something that was freaking massively ancient to the time that was written. It's all history is a rewrite of the Sumerian text. And so they took the box of lots. They were going to cast lots, and they cast lots, and the gods made the division. Anu went up to the sky, and Enlil took the earth for his people. The bolt which bars the sea was assigned to the far-sighted Anki. When Anu had gone up to the sky, and the gods of the Apsu, which is what Anki controlled, had gone below, the Anunnaki, or the ones who came from the sky, and you see it there, the Anunnaki of the sky, those who came to earth from the sky. That's what that whole thing is about. That's what Moses is talking about when he's on the mount and God comes down and God has to leave or he's going to die. These people moved in and out. In fact, a really wonderful fact that I found today, when they were sharing at how horribly destructive our world exists for our children and why children are losing their minds at unprecedented ages, is all of these things that we call progression have robbed from us. There is written ancient text of children who every night when they dreamed, they went to the astral plane and they learned, which is what now the spirit people are just starting to re-access, that has been lost for thousands of years, except to very special people. Edgar Cayce, Dolores Cannon. You don't know it because you're not one of them. It's just the way that the truth is. Okay? All of that spiritual is yet again another corrupted form of the truth that exists and has always existed. And so, they took the earth for his people, Enlil, and the bolt which bars the sea was assigned to far-sighted Anki. When Anlu had gone up into the sky and the gods of the Apsu had gone below, the Anunnaki of the sky made the Agigi bear the workload. Now, some of my research has said the Agigi are Anunnaki, but there's several things that I picked up that say that the Agigi were like the bad Anunnaki, those who misbehaved. Like what they did in Australia. In England, if you were bad and you got sent to prison, they exiled you to Australia. So Australia actually has a spiritual thing tied with it that has to do, because that's where all of the bad people were. It is actually a metaphoric picture of what went on this earth. And so they made the Agigi bear the workload. The gods had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, the lifelines of the land. The Agigi had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, the lifelines of the land. The gods dug out the Tigris River and then dug out the Euphrates River. In the deep, they set up the Apsu of the land. Inside it, raised its top of all of the mountains. They were counting the years of loads. And the great marsh. They were counting the years of loads. For 3,600 years, they bore the excess. Now, for those of you who might have an interest to learn, the Sumerians are the one who instilled the sexadecimal number pattern that we use. There is nothing that is being used mathematically today that did not exist 5,000 years ago. They have found 1,000 years before Pythagoras even lived on this earth that the Sumerians were already using Pythagoras formula to work pi squared plus a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which is pi. They were already using that to build the structures that they built 1,000 years before Pythagoras ever walked on this earth. None of it is new. It's all old. It's all ancient. We were given this wisdom and this knowledge. The Sumerians say they were given it. The Anunnaki say they were given it. And so far, we haven't dug deep enough to find those that existed before the Anunnaki. But I suspect if time allows, we will actually find writings by them, most probably in an even earlier form of cuneiform. So, they were counting the years of loads. For 3,600 years, they bore the excess. Hard work night and day. They groaned and they blamed each other, and they grumbled over the masses of excavated soil. Let us confront our, I'm guessing, God, Lord, Overseer, the Chamberlain, and get him to relieve us of our hard work. Come, let us carry the Lord. Let us carry the load, I believe is what it is, but it does say Lord, and you'll see how that could be applicable. The counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Come, let us carry Enlil, which is what I was talking about. The counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Then Allah made his voice heard, and spoke to the gods, his brothers. Come, let us carry the counselor of the gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Come, let us carry Enlil, the counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Now cry battle. Let us mix fight with battle. The gods listened to his speech, set fire to their tools, and put aside their spades for fire, their loads for the fire god, and they flared up. When they reached the gate of warrior Enlil's dwelling, It was night, the middle watch, and the house was surrounded, and the god had not realized. It was night, the middle watch, Ekur was surrounded, and Elil had not realized. Yet Kalkal was attentive and had it closed. He held the lock and he watched the gate, and Kalkal roused Nusku, and they listened to the noise of the Agigi. Then Nusku roused the master. Make him get out of bed. My lord, your house is surrounded. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil, your house is surrounded. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil had weapons brought to his dwelling, and Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the vizier Nusku. Nusku, bar your door and take up your weapons and stand in front of me. So Nusku barred his door, took up his weapons, and stood in front of Enlil. Nusku made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. O my lord, your face is sallow as tamarisk. Why do you fear your own sons? Just so you know, that's a piece of confirmation, because he was the ruler of the earth. That's known. And these were his sons. So it tells you that the Igigi were given a name, and I don't know if they've even defined what that name is, but it doesn't mean they're another species. They are Anunnaki, as I said, from my research, who have erred in some heinous way and are being punished by being sent to earth from where they came from through portals which exist here today, and they are made to work and labor on this earth. And so, why is your face so sallow? Why do you fear your own sons? Send for Anu to be brought down to you. Have Anki fetched into your presence. And he sent for Anu to be brought down to him. Enki was fetched into his presence. Anu, the king of the sky, was present, and Anki, the king of the Apsu, attended. The great Anunnaki were present. That's the council that you hear about in the Bible. It's not a Jewish council. It's the council that everyone who knew me, that I've talked to about who is the council that is written about in the Bible, you are going to learn what the truth was about the council, and it has nothing to do with the mediocre, menial Jews. Okay? So the great Anunnaki, those all were Anunnaki, but the great ones. At this point, just so you understand, there are no humans on the earth. This is nothing but the Anunnaki came and took this over from another people who existed here before. One of the things that you might need to understand, because you hear the term gods and you may think that they're not. They are flesh and blood beings, okay, that travel the universe, that move from portal to portal. All of the things which we are being told by people now are supposed to happen to us when we finally remember who we are, but they don't happen to know who we are either. But I promise you, within a year, you will know who you are and what that means for you to remember who you are. And it's not what you think. So, all of the great Anunnaki were present, and Enlil got up, and the case was put. Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. So when he says the great gods, he's talking about all of the leadership of the Anunnaki. They were all gods. That's what they were called. That's why Yeshua, just so you know, he says, do you not know that you are little gods? You guys don't even understand. Y'all don't even know who Yeshua is. No clue. I promise you, before I'm done, you will say, that's Yeshua. And so, and spoke to the great gods. Is it against me that they have risen? Shall I do battle? He's asking the council this. What did I see with my own eyes? A rabble was running around my door, and Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. Let Nusku go out and find out the word of the Agigi who have surrounded your door. And a command, I would say, is given to Nusku, and Enlil made his voice heard. They always say that means I've spoken something. and spoke to the vizier Nusku. Nusku, open your door and take up your weapons and stand before me in the assembly of all of the gods. So once again, I'm going to reiterate that. For those of you who spent any time even trying a little bit to understand what the Bible was talking about, and you were told the Elohim that the Jews have converted into their God were these same people that you're reading about. They simply changed the name to use them to control their people. And take up your weapons and stand before me in the assembly of all of the gods. Bow, then stand and tell them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Enugi have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble? So what's the deal? He's being sent. Nusku is being sent to go talk to the Agigi and ask them, what is this all about? They're rebelling. They're burning their tools. They're not going to work anymore. They're gods, but they're having to work while these other gods don't have to work. Who is in charge of the rabble and who is in charge of the fighting? Who declared war and who ran to the door of Enlil? Nusku opened his door, took up his weapons, and he went before Enlil in the assembly of all of the gods. He bowed, then stood, and he told the message. Your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Enugi have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble, who is in charge of the fighting, who declared war, who ran to the door of Enlil. And we lose words, but Enlil pops up, and then listen. This is the Agigi, the rabble, who are giving their response to Nusku. Every single one of us gods declared war. We have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard and the trouble too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil. Nusku took his weapons. He went and he returned to Enlil. My lord, you sent me, and I went and I explained, saying, every one of us gods declared war. We have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us, and our work is too hard. The trouble is too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil. Enlil listened to that speech, and his tears flowed. Now this might seem real strange to you because Enlil is a taskmaster deluxe, but it's quite amazing. I got a chance to see a tablet that's been hidden for over 100 years. There's lots of these tablets that are being hidden. The scholars read them, and they would never speak about them because of what they said. But there actually is a tablet that exists, is a letter written first person by Enlil through a scribe on a cuneiform tablet where Enlil cries about the fact that he caused the flood to come on the earth. And so that's just a little piece. There's a picture here that is really, really, really massively different than all the things that we have thought about gods and stuff, as if they have no feeling, and that it's what a god is not what you were told by Christianity a god is. And so Enlil listened to that speech, and his tears flowed. Enlil spoke guardedly and addressed the warrior Anu, his father. Noble one, take a decree with you to the sky and show your strength. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, call up one god and let them cast him for destruction. Anu made his voice heard, and he spoke to the gods, his brothers. So they are gods, and they are his brothers. This is a familial thing, folks. And Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. What are we complaining of? Their work was indeed too hard. Their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough, we kept hearing the noise. And then it says to do in the task, and then there was a break. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, and while Belet Ali, the womb goddess, is present, call up one and cast him for destruction. So Enlil's way of fixing this through his tears is that he's been too hard, and there has to be some form of punishment. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to find one god and we're going to sacrifice that god. Hold on, because this gets crazy. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, and while Belet Ali, the womb goddess, is present, call up one and cast him for destruction. Anu made his voice heard, and he spoke to Nusku. Bow in the assembly of the great gods, then stand and tell them. Your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, your channel controller Inugi have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble? Who will be in charge of battle? Which god started the war? A rabble was running around my door. When Nusku heard this, he took up his weapons, bowed in the assembly of great gods, and then stood and told them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Inugi have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble? Who is in charge of the fighting? Which god started the war? And a rabble was running around Enlil's door. Ea made his voice heard. And just so you know, that is very, very similar to one of the pre-roots, Ea, of Yahweh. Made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. Why are you blaming them? Their work was too hard. Their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough, and we kept hearing the noise. And there is, Belet Ilum, the womb goddess, is present. Let her create primeval man, so that he may bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Let man bear the load of the gods. Belet Eli, the womb goddess, is present. Let the womb goddess create offspring. And let man bear the loads of the gods. They called up the goddess and asked the midwife of the gods, wise Mammy, you are the womb goddess to be the creator of mankind. So here you go, guys. I have to tell you this. I don't even like to say it, but I'm going to say it because I have to be honest. The place that we exist in the relationship of men between women is pretty sad. Create primeval man that he may bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke of the work. Let man bear the load of the gods. Nintu made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. It is not proper for me to make him. The work is Anki's. And that's where you could hear if it was I would put in there, if I was directing a movie, there would be some kind of sound deviation that would go on when Anki's name is mentioned. He makes everything pure. So here's another indicator. Up until now, you've heard about Anu and Nushku and all of these other Anunnakis, but now we get to Anki. And in a short sentence, the creator of humankind is Anki. He makes everything pure. If he gives me clay, then I will do it. So we have a woman here who was given the opportunity to create this slave worker being because the gods are rebelling, and we're going to make, because we have the ability to genetically engineer things 7,000 years ago, and be impressed that now they can genetically make clones. And she says, I can't do it. I want Anki to do it. He's the god of the underworld, and I want him to do it because everything he does is pure. You'll find out that's really a true statement. And it is not proper for me to make him. The work is Anki's. He makes everything pure. If he gives me clay, then I will do it. And Anki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, I shall make a purification by washing. Then one god should be slaughtered, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Nintu shall mix clay with his flesh and his blood. Then a god and a man will be mixed together in clay. Let us hear the drum beat forever after. I will give you in the shortest term. You can blow at anyone who tells you about what it is that you're supposed to be remembering and how it is your soul. What we are supposed to be remembering is this statement right here. I will give you a message that came to me from Anki. And Anki said, I don't care if they don't believe you, you tell them that these words are the truth. You take that for whatever it's worth to you. But things are about to shift drastically. So they will be mixed together in clay. Let us hear the drum beat forever after. This is Anki's view of how he's going to do things. The drum beat forever after is that which lives in us eternally. Let a ghost come into existence from the god's flesh. Could we say that could easily, in our terms and our understanding, could very easily say, let a spirit come into existence and be in this being from the God who we've placed? When Greg Braden talks about your divinity, you have no idea about what that even means, but you will. Let her proclaim it as his living sign, and let the ghost exist so as not to forget the slain God. I personally believe that that's why all humans innately have a desire for this thing that's called God, even if you have no knowledge of what it is, because something has been placed in you fundamentally that you have no control over, no knowledge over. You don't do anything for it. You don't seek it. It simply exists in you, a gnawing inside of you that says there is a creator. And everybody I've ever met, even if they don't believe in it, know that that's true. Let her proclaim it as a living sign, and let the ghost exist so as not to forget the slain God. What are they talking about when they say we are living in the time of the remembering? Once again, dear friends, the remembering is how we were created. It's not Genesis. Genesis is a bunch of bunk. Okay? It's a bunch of bunk from the front to the back. It's not how we were created. These documents were 2,500 years before there ever was a Moses. It's sad. Almost is a situation of could cause anger in you that we've been so deceived and they've hidden these things so well from us that we have no knowledge. Why? Because they don't want you to remember that inside of you is the DNA and the blood of something that's eternal. And they answered yes in the assembly. So even the assembly says that's fine if we give this thing the ability to remember what it is created from. They answered yes in the assembly, the great Anunnaki who assigned the fates. And I just say this, all of the stuff, all of the Vedic, all of the incarnation, all of the karma, I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest with you, that that's really at all true. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just simply saying that I've read enough things that tell me that there are things that are ordered and ordained. You will constantly hear the Anunnakis called those who create fate. I didn't end up here when the Spirit said to me, we've been waiting for you to get here. That's because I had a purpose for being here. And the journey has been to get there. And since there, we've been on another journey. And I now hear that I have another journey that's about to start that's going to be drastically different than anything else. That's what that all is about. And you could too if you would open in here, but many won't. And so they answered yes in the assembly, and the great Anunnaki who assigned the fates. It's a big statement. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, he made a purification by washing Ilawela, who had intelligence. Okay? Key thing. What have I been talking to you about? Source intelligence. Source intelligence is the intelligence of an Anunnaki God that was killed and his blood used to create you. It exists in you just like I told you it did. Ilawela, who had intelligence. So this is an Anunnaki God, and the first word to bring the epithet to who he is that he has intelligence. Can't you see why the dumbing of America is proof? They're going to do exactly the opposite of that which saves and that which protects. That's always the way it's been. And they slaughtered in their assembly Nintu. Okay, so Ilawela goes through his washing so that he's pure. He has intelligence, and they kill him to take his blood and flesh and mix with clay to create the humanoid which you are, that Greg Braden talks about, that thousands of years ago just instantly appears on the scene. They can't explain it. Science cannot explain Homo sapiens. That's scientific. And so Nintu mixed clay with his flesh and blood, and they heard the drum beat forever after. Humanity has always been immortal. A ghost came into existence from the God's flesh. Could I say the Spirit came into existence? I think the old school Pentecostals had it right. They called it the Holy Ghost. They may or may not have known originally what they were saying, but whether you know it or not, dear friends, they're talking straight out of the Sumerian text when they say the Holy Ghost. And the ghost came into existence from the God's flesh, and she, Nintu, proclaimed it as his living sign. So the sign inside of you that Ilawela gave his life and his blood and his flesh, and they created a spirit that lives inside of you. When the Spirit lives inside of you in your mind, if you are consciously walking, you will immediately remember this one who gave that for me. You see how the correlation of the story they're trying to sell you in Christianity? That's where they got every bit of that. Old and New Testament alike. And so a ghost came into existence from the God's flesh, and she, Nintu, proclaimed it as his living sign. The ghost is the living sign of this inside of you. The ghost existed so as not to forget the slain God. After she had mixed that clay, she called up the Anunnaki, the great gods, the Agigi, the great gods, came and spit spittle upon the clay. Now here's the thing that will take a long time for you to get a full understanding, but I will share this. Whether you know it or not, part of the creation of humanity in that clay has to do with the Agigi, who are also Anunnaki. Spitting on that clay ties them to humanity. It's not a mark of disrespect. It actually is part of a connection at the spirit level that the Agigi endued humans with. So we now have two connections. And they spat spittle upon the clay, and Mammy made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I have carried out perfectly the work that you ordered of me. You have slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. Unless you are from a species of beings that came from some unhuman, that is to say, maybe your grandpa was a monkey, and you may not be a candidate in this arena, but my grandpa wasn't a monkey. Okay? Unless that is the case, this is you as well. The Agigi, the great god, spat spittle upon the clay. Mammy made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I have carried out perfectly the work that you ordered of me. You have slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. I have relieved you of your hard work. Those words said to the Agigi, you are now free. This being which is being created, which you just spit on, is going to take over all the work that you have been doing. That is the purpose of creation. And I have relieved you of your hard work, and I have imposed your load on man. You have bestowed noise on mankind. So the purpose of them creating humans was because the Agigi started making noise and ruckus. Here's the thing that over the last months that I've been thinking as I learn. It seems strange that we are totally unconscious on this earth of the effect that we have on others. And I say that all the time about people. Walk around unconsciously doing things with no consciousness of anyone that's around them. They're so inner self that they don't even think about other people. They only think about themselves. But the reality of it is that actually works out on the macro level as well. Okay? We do not realize that all of the stuff that we are doing on this earth is being heard. And you're going to see that they are not pleased with what they're hearing very shortly in front of us. And so I have undone the fetter and I have granted freedom. And they listened to this speech of hers and were freed from anxiety, and they kissed her feet. We used to call you Mammy. I think that's kind of funny too. But now your name will be the mistress of all gods. Farsighted Enki and wise Mammy went into the room of fate, the place where they decided what was going to happen. And the womb goddess were assembled, the womb goddesses were assembled. He trod the clay in her presence. He trod the clay. Enki, Lord Enki, the god Enki, is the one who walked on the clay that humans were made out of. So how much more could we have this connection to something you know nothing about? Of course it's easy for you to not remember. And they were assembled. He trod the clay in her presence, and she kept reciting an incantation. So the whole time that he is trotting this clay, the whole time he is walking on this clay, she is speaking an incantation to the world. I know many of you are Christian. You don't know anything about the power of humans inciting incantations. But I tell you right now, whether you know anything about it or not is irrelevant, because they are powerful to those who know how to use them. And they have always existed. And he trod the clay in her presence, and she kept reciting an incantation, for Enki, staying in her presence, made her recite it. When she had finished her incantation, she pinched off 14 pieces of clay and set 7 pieces on the right and 7 pieces on the left, and between them she put down a mud brick, and she made use of a reed and opened it to cut the umbilical cord. Called up the wise and knowledgeable womb goddesses. So these weren't just bimbos. They were extremely wise. 7 and 7. 7 created males and 7 created females. For the womb goddess is creator of fate. And he, I would say, counted them 2 by 2. And counted them 2 by 2 in her presence. Mammy made these rules for people. In the house of a woman who is giving birth, the mud brick shall be put down for 7 days. Belet Eli, wise mammy, shall be honored. The midwife shall rejoice in the house of the woman who gives birth. And when the woman gives birth to the baby, the mother of the baby shall sever herself. There's some significances there that I'm not going to get into. A man to a girl and her bosom. A beard can be seen, and on a young man's cheek in gardens and waysides, a wife and husband choose each other. The womb goddesses were assembled, and Nintu was present. They counted the months, called up the 10th month of the term of fates. When the 10th month came, she slipped in a staff and opened the womb, and her face was glad and joyful. She covered her head, performed the midwifery, put on her belt, said a blessing. She made a drawing in flour and put down a mud brick. I myself created it with my hands. My hands made it. The midwife shall rejoice in the house of the Kudisto priestess. Wherever a woman gives birth, the baby's mother severs herself. The mud brick shall be put down for 9 days. Nintu, the womb goddess, shall be honored. She shall call their name Mammy. The womb goddess, lay down the linen cloth. When the bed is laid out in their house, a wife and her husband shall choose each other. Ishtar shall rejoice in the wife-husband relationship. In the father-in-law's house, celebration shall last for 9 days, and they shall call Ishtar Ishara. On the 15th day, the fixed time of fate, she shall call. And there's a gap here. Unfortunately, 7,000-year-old clay tablets do get chips and broken. And a man, and clean the home, the son to his father. And they took hold of, so the piece there that's being filled in is the children growing up into beings, if you would. And they took hold, they made new picks and spades because the Agigi had burnt the other ones. And they made big canals to feed people and sustain the gods. So what was the purpose of all of this work in the first place? The purpose, these guys were the society that they created 7,000 years ago was absolutely phenomenal. And we've been told that there was nothing but a bunch of Neanderthals that walked around and maybe 10 of them in a tribe group. But they are now finding places where there were 50 and 60,000 people 7,000 years ago that existed. Why haven't you ever been told that? That's not just some Neanderthal that lived out in the cave of a cave bear. In fact, the construct of that is heinous just in the reality of the fact that they would deceive you when they possess all of this knowledge. And so 600 years, less than 600 passed, and the country became too wide and the people too numerous. Now, the Atrahasis, at least at this point, does not get into the different incarnations. We will have to move. The Atrahasis is here retelling this story from the Sumerian, and I did that on purpose because I want you to see the progression. You have seen Christianity, and if you can't surmise from that to this the pieces that are similar, then I can't help that. But from the Atrahasis, then we will move even further to the Sumerian text, and you will actually find the places where they wrote this, that it came from a time that was even earlier. And so the country was noisy as a bellowing bull. The god grew restless at their racket. Enlil had to listen to their noise. He addressed the great gods. The noise of mankind had become too much. I am losing sleep over their racket. Give the order that Surupu disease shall break out. Okay? So we have Enki giving an order that one must give up to give humanity. What you don't know, for those who might have interest, is that we are the 8th created being. 8 is a new beginning in numerology. The 7th was functional. There was nothing flawed in it. The 6 before the 7th had all kinds of problems. They couldn't reproduce. They were blind. They couldn't talk. They couldn't think. And so each one was a genetic modification for the next series and the next series. The 7th were totally functional, and they made the 8th. I'm waiting for the text that come out that explains that. Before it's over with, it will, because you can be sure they talked about it. And so the noise of mankind had become too much. Well, remember what Anu said about the Agigi. He said the resounding was there, and we heard it, but we did nothing about it. So if you can grab a hold of that reality, what about the reality of the noise, whether it be spiritual or whether it be resonant-wise, that is being projected off of this planet at this very time? If they were a rabble and they were making too much noise, and it caused, because you see here that he says, the country was as noisy as a bellowing bull. The god grew restless at their racket. So it was taking away the silence. All through the spiritual pieces, you hear people who have knowledge are constantly talking about people taking the silence away from them. People that have to have incessant noise to fill their minds will rob your silence. Silence is sacred. And so the noise of mankind has become too much. I am losing sleep over their racket. Give the order that Serupu disease shall break out. Now there was one Atrahasis whose ear was open to his god Enki. He would speak with his god, and his god would speak with him. This isn't a biblical cliche. I happen to know it's true because I've already experienced that, to be quite honest with you. Atrahasis made his voice heard, and he spoke to his Lord. This is the whole picture that you get to see in Christianity about talking to God. This is where it came from. Right here, in front of you. Thousands of years before there was a Jew. And it wasn't Yahweh. And so he spoke to his Lord. How long will the gods make us suffer from this disease that we have? So what was it? It was a pandemic. How long will the gods make us suffer? Will they make her suffer illness forever? Enki made his voice heard, and he spoke to his servant. Call the elders, the senior men. Start an uprising in your own house. Let heralds proclaim. Let them make a loud noise in the land. And do not revere your gods, and do not pray to your goddesses, but search out the door of Nemtara. Bring a baked loaf into his presence. May the flour offering reach him. May he be shamed by the presents that you are bringing, I added that, and wipe away his hand. Atrahasis took the order, gathered the elders to his door. Atrahasis made his voice heard, and he spoke to the elders. I have called the elders, the senior men. Start an uprising in your own house. Let heralds proclaim. Let them make a loud noise in the land. Do not revere your gods. Do not pray to your goddesses. Search out the door of Namtara. Bring a baked loaf into his presence. May the flour offering reach him. May he be shamed by the presence and wipe away his hands. The elders listened to his speech. They built a temple for Namtara in the city. Heralds proclaimed. They made a loud noise in the land. They did not revere their God. They did not pray to their goddesses, but searched out the door of Namtara and brought a baked loaf into the presence. The flour offering reached him. He was shamed by the presence and wiped away his hand, and the Serapu disease left them. And the gods went back to their regular offerings. Wow. You're going to see as we go along that this cycle, I started learning when I first started learning about this, that more so there's a reason why the Jews and Christianity deceived you so massively about the things of the world, because they knew if you ever began to inquire that the universe would expose the truth to you. Anki will expose the truth to you. The remembering will only be for those people who are pure. And that's been in every document. Those who are interested in the well-being of humanity. Anki cared about humans, as you find as we go along. There's every time that humans have been saved, it was because of Anki, including the flood, which was 4,000 years before Noah ever lived on this earth. So, sorry, Noah, it weren't you. But the original true story that they concocted that out of does exist. They've been safe for 2,000 years now because nobody could read cuneiform and there was no internet for these tablets to get out. You have no clue how many billionaires. I guarantee you, if you go to Bill Gates' house, somewhere in his confines, he owns manuscripts that talk about where we're headed. It's amazing the amount of money people are paying for these Sumerian tablets of things that are coming. They are not prophecy. They are cycles that have been known from antiquity. At this value of years, if people behave like this is what's going to come on them. It's not a prophecy. It's as sure as day is night that this is going to happen at this time frame, which is why it's so crazy right now, because we fit in every one of the astronomical and time arrangements that have been discovered up till this point. So when you have astrophysicists that start studying the stars to see if what the Sumerians wrote was true and find out it's true, not once, not twice, thousands of times, all of a sudden you might ask yourself, is there any truth to this? So, we're at tablet 2. I'm going to stop there. Thank you for those. I don't know. It looks like the clock must have stopped, but I don't think it's 5 o'clock. But the reality of the matter is, folks, is that there is much truth that is coming out. It doesn't deny. In fact, for me, all it does is brings clarity to all the things I were taught that were totally incomplete. In many situations, I don't even have to ask the question. It's already been answered. Well, I've been wondering about that for 20 years in Christianity, and I read the Bible and all the documents I could find associated with Christianity, and there was no answer. In fact, they refused to even look at the situation. But I will say another thing that I have, which is a pondering that I have. I absolutely will not be surprised if one of the 3 times that who we called Yeshua if he did not exist as Anki. And so whether or not that's true, we will see. But if it isn't, then I promise you he has the same heart that Anki has. And so peace to each and every one of you. I know this is a shotgun blast. It's never going to quit. Things are moving so fast right now, it's not even funny. But for those of you who are interested in what happens to you in the very near future, I hope your mind is enlivened and you're interested in waking up. Because, folks, things ain't staying like they are for much longer. So, peace to each and every one of you. It can be the most amazing time or something else. You get to choose. Shalom and namaste.